Thanks for downloading this show from PC One. Before we get rolling, here's a word from one of the folks who helped bring you this podcast. The following program is a PodcastOne.com production. From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Steve Austin Show. I am coming to you in the mean streets of Los Angeles, California. I'm over here at 316 Gimmick Street in Marina Del Rey. Yeah, we moved back into our house, but that's a story I'm probably going to tell you on Thursday's Unleashed show, because today I got a hell of a podcast for you. Shane McMahon came by 317 Gimmick Street last week, and we talked for over an hour and a half before we went and ate a steak dinner. This is a conversation we were supposed to have for the WWE Network, but I had shoulder surgery, and I could not fly to Baltimore to do the live podcast, so Mick Foley filled in for me. And Mick Foley did an outstanding job in talking to Shane. I went back and rewatched that interview just before Shane came to the house, so I'm going to try to avoid most of the stuff that Mick and Shane covered and cover a bunch of other stuff. Again, props to Mick Foley for doing an outstanding job. Shane gives a real detailed account of his Wrestlemania match against the Undertaker when he jumped off the top of the cage. We're going to talk about the time I didn't want to do the favors for Brock Lesnar, and I took my ball and went home, and how that affected not only Vince, but how it affected Shane and everyone else as well. And Shane's got stories about Andre the Giant, Kurt Hennig, traveling down the road with Don Muraco and Roddy Piper. And, of course, we're going to talk about his relationship with his dad and being the commissioner on SmackDown. So we got an hour and 40 minutes with Shane. And before we jump into it, Mother's Day is Sunday, this Sunday. And I know a lot of y'all are procrastinators like me, so that's why I got you back. I got a gift that Mom will love and your wallet will love, and you still have time to get. The Books. I know that sending flowers online isn't always easy to do. You get hooked in with that $19.99 advertised price, but then when you get to checkout, the price suddenly jumps to $100, and that's because all those shipping, handling, and special care fees that get added on. Here's the solution: Books.com. Books are farm fresh flowers that can last up to 2 weeks. They're cut to order, so they're always fresh and guaranteed to last. Books flowers start at just $40, and when I say $40, I mean $40. Ain't no hidden fees, ain't no special care and handling fees either. What you see is what you get with the Books. And right now, if you register at Books.com and use my promo code Steve, you'll save 20% off your order and receive free weekday delivery. So register now at thebooks.com and use my promo code Steve to save 20% off your order and get free weekday delivery. That's promo code Steve at thebooks.com.
The Steve Austin Show. The Steve Austin Show.
Always forget to hit the record button. I've just hit it. We're rolling sound. Shane McMahon is my guest here at 317 Gimmick Street. God dang, it is good to see you. Welcome to the mean streets of Los Angeles, California. How are you?
I'm doing exceptional. Good to see you. It's been way too long.
I was out there over 316. We just finished a complete remodel. You just walked over there. I mean, the battle wounds are still fresh. I mean, they're still cleaning out all the stuff over there. It's been major mayhem. I'm rooted in over here. We're about to start moving in over there. You caught me in the middle of it. But this is where it all starts from for me, back here. You're on my territory right now.
Well, nothing's changing. I'm always in your territory.
There's been a few times that I've been on yours. I kind of wanted to shoot the breeze with you and see how open-minded you are, just tossing something on the table, breaking it down, reliving old stuff, and shooting the breeze, more so than me grilling you hardcore questions like I'm an interrogator. Are you down with that?
Sure. I'm ready for anything.
Ready for anything?
Sure.
All right. Well, let's jump off with WrestleMania 33. Because that's fresh on my mind, just as of the latest things that you've done that have really been kind of a wow factor. Obviously, general manager of SmackDown brand, correct?
Commish.
That's
Sorry. The title.
My bad.
No, that's the official title. I get it confused also.
Okay, but you're the Commish on SmackDown. So you got that going on currently.
Correct.
But let's talk about WrestleMania 33, the match with AJ Styles. I thought it was the match of the night. A lot of people said, God dang, AJ Styles is going to wrestle Shane McMahon. Why can't they find someone for Shane to wrestle? I said the same thing. But I was impressed with your performance. I was just thinking of the guy that's in the trenches 24/7, 365, that had a guy lined up for him. But they stuck you in that spot. How did you feel about that? How did you feel about people saying, well, why is Shane wrestling this world-class guy?
Well, I was humbled to be in there. AJ's a great talent.
Damn right.
Never worked with him. He's been here about a year. Came just before I came back. But I've always been an AJ Styles fan. Really enjoyed his work all the way from Japan to what he was doing at TNA. And it's a different time in the business now. So guys usually, of AJ's size and stature, had to work so much harder. Sean always had to work so much harder, and Marty. And now those doors have opened wide open because now it gets down to caliber and quality of performance. So ding, 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 that guy is amazing all the way to the top. So I was truly humbled to be, offered the opportunity to get in there with him. And it all comes down to what's the right booking. I think what people were reacting to specifically was the caliber of AJ Styles just coming off being the WWE champion, working with Cena and going in. They wanted him to be much more in that championship, dare I say, ranking.
Right.
So I think that's much more of what everyone was trying to articulate but not saying. They want to see AJ in the title hunt. And the cards weren't there at the moment. So they were taking a little detour, and how booking can be. It gets challenging. You can't please everybody. But the main thing is, how do you keep momentum for people? And part of my role is to do just that. So my role is to keep momentum going. I'm very happy to be in that role. It's always been my role, and I love being able to do that and help the whole process. I guess if you put a moniker on it, I guess I would be best supporting actor always, and never the main guy, which I'm very happy to do.
But, when you say know your role, that kind of goes back to our old buddy The Rock, know your role. Mm-hmm. And so that has been your role, but also you're an integral, a big part of so many great storylines, and maybe 33, come on. And maybe 33 stepping in with AJ, to go back to 32 with The Undertaker in Dallas. I want to talk about that in a minute. But the fact that you stepped in there, you got yourself ready, you look like $1 million. So I watch it, when I watch an event like WrestleMania 33, which I loved. I thought it was a pretty damn solid WrestleMania. I watch it as one of the boys. I watch it as a guy who got into business since 1989. I'm out of it, but I'm technically still in it. It'll be a part of my life until I'm dead. But I also like to watch as a fan, because I want to see the boys go out there and tell a story and make me smile or make me go, yeah, or get some heat. And I'm like, God dang, time for that comeback. Come on, man, fire it up. And that's what you guys did. Y'all went out there. I love the story. AJ's mindset was kind of like, come on, man, you got no business being in here. I'm the face that runs this place. That's swagger, which he's great at. And then all of a sudden, y'all just turned into just a damn good match, back and forth action, heat, comeback, and you just told a great story with some outstanding stuff in there. What did you do to spin up and get ready for WrestleMania 33? Because as you well know, cardio is very specific. You can get on an elliptical trainer and go like gangbusters, but it doesn't transfer to the ring. I know you do a lot of damn mixed martial arts. What was your training program? Because you look like $1 million and you weren't gassed at all.
That's really what I attribute it to. As you're well aware, going in the ring, which people have no idea because they've never been in there, just running and hitting the ropes, it hurts. You have to get calloused. That's why guys that are on the road all the time, my hat's off to them, because they get calloused. They get used to everything. Doing a flat back, jumping up, laying on your back, is like, you have no idea. People ask me, like, oh, my God, what's that feel like? I said, look, be very careful, but go out in your backyard, jump up in the air, tuck your chin, and land flat on your back. Now, that is extremely jarring. And now imagine doing that about 40 or 50 times when you got to repeat and do all that. But answering your question of what I do to stay in shape, again, a lot of that is attributed to what I do of, training with, I do strength and conditioning with Jimmy Quinn, who's my strength and conditioning coach.
Now, what does that entail?
That's much more resistance training and, just hitting the weights and doing all the basics and getting back to stuff.
You circuit training, or you're doing bodybuilding training?
No, a little both.
Or would they say functional strength as far as keeping your heart rate up?
Basically, it's to keep. No, it's not so much my heart rate. It's just to keep everything together.
Okay.
So I'm getting older. I just need to keep everything together and tight, and that's why I train and do that resistance-wise. The more of the cardio comes from when I do Muay Thai, and that's when I train with Phil Nurse. So when you're throwing hands and feet and you're going a bunch of rounds with a 30-second rest, I train hard. And then I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Again, I do that with the Gracies, Hollis and Henzo. And also Mario Mercado. I got a lot of guys. Mario Mercado is my amateur wrestling. He was Division I at Syracuse. So we get in there and just battle it out. So all of that, it's a tremendous amount of cardio.
It sounds like you went to a fight camp.
Yeah, well, that's basically what I do.
Yeah.
You have to do that.
I'm looking at you. Shane's about 4 feet away from me. We're sitting at a little table over here at 317 Gimmick Street, and I'm looking at two hands. And when you ball those things up, those two hands have produced more potatoes than the potato fields of Idaho. Did you get a bunch of fights?
You should talk. Oh my God! I think I've received more of those potatoes than any person in the world.
Are you kidding me?
Oh, come on!
A lot of people complained that I was a little snug in the ring, and on those comebacks when DX and you guys were feeding. I mean, there's some goose eggs and some black eyes and stuff like that. But dude, you got a lot of quicker hands than me. I was watching a couple of those left hands and a big rights. With Undertaker, I'm like, God dang. I saw Undertaker after one endeavor, and I looked at him. I said, dude, what's with the eye? He goes, God dang kid. He was talking about you.
I got heat for that from his mom.
Really?
Oh, my God. I got heat from that. It happened. I tatered the hell out of him. But that was the week before. There was the go-home WrestleMania. It was in Brooklyn. And something went awry. We were throwing hands, and we were outside, and I went to hit him with the monitor or something, and then it was stuck. So all of a sudden he sits up, and I'm like, well, he's a big dude. I'm like, what am I going to do? I was like, I kind of panicked a little bit, didn't quite get my range, so I wasn't completely looking at him. I went, whack, and I stuck it out there, and I felt it, and went, thunk. I went, oh, my God. I saw his eyes roll back in his head for a minute. He looked at me. All of a sudden I started that trickle of blood come down. I go, I'm dead. So what do? I quickly get on him fast. Whack, whack, whack. I go, I might as well get him in now. Give him a couple extra.
We're going to get back to 33, but let's talk about Taker for a second, because here's the thing. In the business, I mean, you're going to throw a couple of those thuds, and we both have, and we laugh about it because it's funny.
And he's my friend. So
but like you said, like you're talking on the Mick Foley podcast, as tight as you guys are, as long as you've known each other, the immense respect that you have for all of the guys in the business, because you never want to hurt anybody.
Right.
But when you stiff a guy like the Undertaker, who's like at the top of the respect totem pole, with one of the greatest careers in the history of the business, and you just thump him, it's like, God dang it, I feel bad.
I felt like terrible. I came back through the grill position with my head sunk low, and I just walked up, and then here he comes back through, and when he's a little PO'd, he's larger than life. He comes in, I'm just like, so I just quickly look up, said, I'm sorry, give him a hug, and then I close my eyes, I stick my chin out like this. I'm ready for one. I'm like, go ahead, recito. He went, it's all right, it'll come later. And boy, did it ever. Oh, my God.
When did the receipt come? Because that's classic Undertaker.
Oh, it's crushed me. Crushed me. We were laughing. In the beginning of that match, Undertaker, we were doing stuff, and I was, we're throwing hands. When we're throwing, we already had the deal that we're going to go.
Yeah.
So we're starting to throw, and, we're tagging. And then one thing, he hit me, and then I just kind of went into my, my own little world for a second, protect mechanism, and then I leg kick him.
Yeah.
And it went whack. All of a sudden, he looked at me and went, ow. And I saw it, and he went, then he was hot. So at some point, he had grounded me, done something, and I was gassed. I was laying down. I'm like, all right, let me catch my breath for a second. So I'm laying kind of in the fetal position, totally relaxing, because I know he's about to go do something else. I got like probably 20 seconds so I can catch my breath. Taking big breaths in, eyes are closed. And then my face flat on the canvas, he reaches up and bear paws me. Whack! Wide open jaw, everything. All of a sudden, I got those gold glitters. When you get hit hard, you're just like, ping! You're like, woo, my gosh. And then I start laughing. I go, oh, he did that on purpose. And he and I had dinner a few months after that. We were laughing at these stories, talking about it. But, oh, man, I was totally seeing stars.
Let's jump back to 33 for a second before we start talking about Undertaker 32, because I want to talk about 101, however many thousand people were jammed in that building. There in Florida, 75,000 people came from, all 50 states, I believe 62 countries. Yep. It's an amazing, it's an annual phenomenon when WrestleMania gathers. And we'll go back and talk about WrestleMania 1 here in a little bit. How was the atmosphere? You're early on the card. You get out there, the sun's going down, the lights ain't on yet. And so sometimes that atmosphere is not what you'd want it to be. But y'all didn't suffer that fate. Y'all had the crowd. The story that y'all told grabbed the people hook, line, and sinker. A couple of matches that followed you didn't have such a good success. What were you thinking when you went out there? Because I just make this comparison to Ford Field when we did the Battle of the Billionaires, and there was 90,000 people in there, but the sound was going up. We couldn't hear. We thought we were crap in the bed. Right. Me and Vince were looking at each other. We're like, God dang, man, we're stinking the joint out. How did you feel going out there? Did you know you'd rock the place? When did you know you had the crowd? How did it feel? Bunch of questions. Just elaborate. Tell me about the experience. AJ Styles, one of the best workers in the world, WrestleMania 33.
Well, again, I was pumped to get out there, and I learned the business, as I said on the podcast and many other interviews. I learned the business completely backwards because I never ever thought I would be in the ring, but I always learned psychology. I learned psychology first. And all of those years of sitting and just, it's almost through osmosis of listening to Pat Patterson and talking to guys of what to do, what not to do, when to do it, why to do it. That just became innate in me. Learning from my dad, the same thing. You hear all that. I mean, these are the masters of it. And then having the ability to work with amazing talent, you included of why we're doing this, what's our story. So psychology was always the most important thing because, as you said earlier, we're storytelling. And what story are we trying to tell? And when I first got booked with AJ, my questions were, okay, well, what's our story? To everybody. And they're like, well, we're trying to figure this out. I said, no, we need to figure out exactly what we're doing, what's our story. And then if you will go back and watch the weeks leading up to that, well, what we did was we started telling that story, including AJ's promo on the go home. And it was all about, again, this is not going to be your typical Shane McMahon match. It's not no holds barred. He wants to embarrass me. This is his ring. We're going to wrestle. There's no punches going to be thrown. I'm in his world. So I was like, oh, okay. So it's going to be a whole different type of deal in the story. And that's exactly the story that we started to tell in the ring. So if you notice, WrestleMania 33, ding, ding, ding. And to answer your question, the sun had just set and the breeze picked up. Yeah. So I was like coming down that ramp, which is 80 yards. I mean, that ramp was so long. But being first out was, I love jerking the curtain because...
Me too.
Hey.
Nice to be the main event. You want to be the main event? It's cool to jerk the curtain.
I love jerking the curtain. By the way, if I was the main event, I'd still like to jerk the curtain.
Right.
Okay? Because you're first out. So being first out, everything just got a nice breeze. It was cool. I was like, oh, all right, I'm feeling it. I run down. I see my three boys and Marissa sitting in the audience right there. Give them the sign, and we had to go because you got to hit times. You got a lot of stuff going on. AJ comes out, and then as soon as we started telling that story, started feeling it, I was like, wow, okay, I think we got him.
It's a garbage truck.
Garbage truck.
Par for the course here on the Steve Austin Show. They're going to come back and get my trash can.
Well, they're coming getting tons of stuff probably because you have all that stuff from next door you're cleaning out and everything else.
I complain about my show all the time, but it's included. The show downloads for free, so it's kind of like everything but the kitchen sink. That's the family-friendly show.
And I saw a kitchen sink out there. So we're getting rid of that.
Yeah, so the garbage truck is included. So you're out there, you're telling a story.
So we start telling the story. And, kind of chapter one was, all right, he's out wrestling me. And if you go back and watch it, that's what we're telling. We're like, okay. And then I did a little better the second time. Then the third time, I got one up on him. He's like, oh, my gosh, what the hell was that? So surprised him. Then when he came back in, here we go. I'm getting ready to throw hands. He says, none of that anymore. We're going to wrestle. I'm like, all right. So we start to go wrestle. Then he cold cocks me. So now he's trying to beat me in my own game. I'm like, all right, you want to throw hands. And then once we start throwing hands, it becomes a little bit of a different story.
Yes.
So then the tides turn a little bit. And then from there, once we kind of got right, even from the get-go, the energy level, and even though it was way up, in the crowd, the noise just goes high because there's no roof on the place, we felt that rumble.
Okay.
We felt them. So I was like, wow.
How important is that to feel those people?
Extremely.
Damn right.
Because
I'm deaf, but I can hear a crowd.
you can't, because it's a feeling. Oh my gosh, I just got goosebumps. My nipples got hard.
Easy.
easy. I won't show you. But it's that excitement when you're in there, and the crowd's part of you. When you do your job right and you're entertaining correctly, the crowd, take them on a ride.
Yeah.
Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
And you want them to be part of our story.
Yeah.
Be part of our story.
Yeah.
And
participate.
That's what it was. Oh, it's the greatest. Worst thing in the world is crickets.
Oh,
crickets. Oh my God. They could be booing profusely. Great. That's the reaction we want. But crickets, brutal. Get the shotgun.
And crickets happens every now and then. You could be sometimes, even at my hottest, you could have a town that would be kind of crickets. It wouldn't be all crickets, but you're like, God dang, we've been rocking the house for like 6 days straight. And all of a sudden, these people are sitting on their hands and nobody's really invested. Like, God, this is horrible. Anyway, with the match. You're rocking the place, you're feeling it, and you listen to the crowd, and you're having your match, and you turn on the lights out and match. And so,
thank you.
So
that was the goal.
I thought it was a great match. So the important part of it, though, is getting the people to be a part of the match. You felt like you had them. Y'all did have them. You took them on a ride. You did to go home, and you go to the back. You just said you learned the business backwards. You learned psychology first. So in reading about you, you were a referee for a brief time, way back in, 89, 90?
Oh, gosh, I've been a referee ever since.
Before then?
80, sure.
Well, tell me about getting into business, because I don't know that you talked about this with McFoley, because your grandfather never wanted Vince in the business, your father.
Right.
So, and he started promoting Bangor, Maine, or whatever the territory was. He had a hard time getting that show going. He promoted it. It was a success. Your grandfather led him into business. Mm-hmm. So what was your father's stance on you getting in the business?
Well, he knew that's exactly what I wanted to do. The requirements were I had to graduate college.
Where'd you go to school at?
Boston University. Right. Graduated from there.
What kind of degree?
I got a BS, Mass Communications, Public Relations. Bachelor's of Science.
In what?
Mass Communications, Public Relations. What do you do with what?
Mass Communications.
Mass Communications? Well,
tell stories in a ring?
Exactly.
What were you going to do if you had not gotten a business to apply that degree?
Well, it's everything from sportscasting to, getting into business level administration. It was more of a general education all the way around, but leading more into the communications field, which is more media and all the stuff that I kind of grew up with anyway. So I was just like, okay, let me kind of feel this, knowing full well I wanted to get completely into the business.
Okay, mass communications. But you knew you wanted to get into business.
Yes, I did.
Vince's dad didn't want him in the business, so what was y'all's agreement?
Well, I was, again, just had to graduate college was one of them, and then I worked. I worked in the business ever since I could. Ever since I went to my first wrestling match when I was 2 years old. It was the Worcester Auditorium, and I remember. And then since then, in all the territories, my dad would take me.
You remember going to the matches in Worcester at 2 years of age?
2, 3, because it continued. But I remember.
I remember yesterday.
No, certain things stick in your mind.
You're talking 45 years ago.
Yeah. Well, how many? Let me see about that.
You're 47?
No, I'm like 40. I'm like 39.
Oh, yeah, okay. Okay, so you remember always going to the matches. How did your dad start you in the business? Well, you know the inside, you know the nuts and bolts.
Well, I started, when I was there ever since, again, just as a young kid, helping set the ring up, taking turnbuckles out of the bag, putting them over. Because, I was too small to, lift the heavy ropes and all the other stuff. I eventually graduated a ring crew. I was the kid in the summer and on weekends, and I used to go hang up old school, the poster in the front of, the grocery store or the barber shop,
right.
In the cart. And we bring in, excuse me, sir, you mind if we put this in your front window? Old school grassroots promotion, which people have no idea what that's all about anymore. So that's how I really started. I started doing everything.
Okay, but after college?
Well, then I graduated ring crew, all the other stuff. That's when I started refereeing.
Well, let me ask you about the ring crew.
Yeah.
Because a lot of good stories happen on the ring crew.
Oh, my gosh.
Were you traveling with the guys? Because I know, when your dad was promoting and making a lot of the towns, you didn't see a lot of him.
Correct.
I didn't see a lot of my girls when I was on the road hardcore. That's just the way the life in the business was. So who were you hanging with on the ring crew?
Well, the original ring crew was Joey Morella, okay, Mike Chioda, and Tony Chimmel. Those were the three.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sadly, Joey Morella's no longer with us.
Yes.
Okay.
So I was the kid, and so Joey and I, because his dad was Gorilla Monsoon, and my dad. So what we do, and he was probably 6 or 7 years older than me. So we were drinking beers under the stands, we're just like, complaining about our dads. Mostly he
what
was
are you, 10 or 13? Or what?
Yeah, I'm younger. I'm not of drinking age.
Yes.
Okay, different time back then, everything else, So we're drinking beers under the stage. And that eventually, then Joey became full-time referee. And then that left an opening on the ring crew for like summers and, holiday vacations and all that stuff where I just worked and I plugged in there. So it was Chimmel and Kyoto, and then I was the third. So I would travel around with those guys and a few others, but that was the main crew. And oh my gosh, did we have fun.
Were you playing cards and dominoes with those guys way back in the day? Because that's how they pass a lot of time. When they get the ring set up, they got to kill time, so that's a lot of what goes on.
They did. I didn't play much of the domino. I would go run or do something else or get ready and, make sure everything's all set. But I didn't do so much. But what we used to do is we had to drive everywhere. So we would tear down the ring. And then Chimmel, not so much, but Kyoto and I always wanted to go out. So being on the road, you've hit your favorite place to eat, and then everyone would ascend on a bar.
Yeah.
There was a certain joint that everybody went to. It was a staple, no matter what town you went to. So we were always like, hurry up, let's get it done. Tear the ring down as fast as we can, get in the shower, get to the next town so we can go. And then we meet up with, the boys. And then there'd all be all types of competitions. So I'd be out with the Nasty Boys and Marty and Sean, and it was me and Kyoto, and we were having, teams and, team competition, who drinks more and all. I mean, it was so much fun.
So what would your dad tell you when he found out the shenanigans with the ring crew and all the boys?
He was pretty cool because he knew I was cutting my teeth and, got to earn a rite of passage and you got to pay your dues. I mean, I'm still paying dues. I don't think I'll ever not pay dues. It's just different. You got to earn your respect each and every day. That's how I was brought up, and that's just how I am today. That's what I teach my sons as well.
That's interesting. Your dad's a third-generation promoter. You're fourth generation in the wrestling business. So I guess, hey, it's going to come with the territory. But he wasn't hard on you. I mean, he just understood, hey, man, like I said, rite of passage.
He was extremely hard on me. Vince, I mean,
well, what was it like growing up in that household? He was always gone. He was gone a lot, but,
strict.
Dude, I know your dad pretty good, obviously not near as well as you do. So how was he as a dad?
He was a great dad. Always there.
But laid down the law when you messed up?
Oh, my gosh, yes.
Would he ground you? Or like?
Oh, yeah.
Boy, if we messed up, you messed up in Victoria, Texas. Boy, my dad coming there with a leather belt. And he was my stepdad now. Mm-hmm. And but we look at him as being my real dad, and God dang, he started pulling off that belt. And I said, God dang, Dad, I'm sorry. I said, I'll never do it again. He goes, boy, I know you won't. He'd grab my left arm and start swinging. I'd be running around in circles. He'd be busting my ass, that belt. And Shane, my stepdad used to go in the other room, and he would cry because he had to whip our asses because we weren't really his kids when he first met my mom.
Right.
But God dang, when you messed up over in Victoria, you paid for it, and that's how he did it. Did the old stand thing, ground you and stuff like that. Anything like that going on with you?
Oh, without question.
Okay.
Old school. I grew up
old school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Give me some nuts.
Old
Boy,
school.
These days, if you hear somebody whipping a kid, boy, child abuse, you can't do that.
Listen, if my dad didn't step in like he did, I probably wouldn't be here, or I'd be locked away or somewhere else.
What are you saying about your personality?
I'm saying that I was just a very high-spirited guy. You know me. I'm high energy. I got to have an outlet for that energy, and if it's channeled in the wrong way, you just do dumb things. I kind of self-diagnosed myself ADD, ADHD, whatever you want to call it. Or both.
Okay. Have you ever been diagnosed as ADD, or is it just like, hey, Shane's hyper?
No, I had them both.
Okay.
Diagnosed, and yeah.
So did they give you medication to take? Did you take the medication?
They tried when I was a kid, but when we grew up, they just thought we were disciplinary problems.
Right.
Now there's medicine for it. They tried me on the medicine Ritalin.
Yeah.
Back then it was very experimental. It didn't work with me.
Make you more hyper, or what?
It would wound me up.
Right.
I became very irritable. Not a good thing. So It's tough, and plus I was so transient, moving a lot, that you don't really get to sit in, and you start missing skills, of different school systems or whatever, and some are a little more advanced, some are a little more behind, but you just gotta try to figure out where you fit in and making new friends, and so it becomes tough.
Did you make friends easy?
I did. I'm pretty easygoing. I'm very principled, and if you're wrong with me, that's
Right.
it. But other than that, I'm pretty good.
What kind of student were you? I mean, I know you got a degree, but I mean, did you really have to apply yourself? Or were you a C, a D guy?
When I was interested in something, I did very well. I excelled. When I wasn't, I didn't really see the importance of it. Now, if I can talk to my young self, which I'm talking to my kids, I won't allow them to make that mistake, because you need to get it all done. Some things in your job, you don't like the certain parts of it, but you got to get that done to get to the next level.
All right, Shane, you brought up Gorilla Monsoon's name, and I've always loved his commentary with Bobby Heenan and Jesse Ventura. Hell, you grew up hanging out with some of my biggest heroes. So let's talk about that was like for you after we take care of Geico. Everybody's got a to-do list. Drop off the dry cleaning, pick up some milk. Here's an idea. Let's save hundreds of dollars on car insurance. And the good thing is you don't have to drop off or pick up anything. All you have to do is go to geico.com, and in 15 minutes, you could be saving 15% or more on car insurance. Extra money in your pocket? It just may be the most rewarding to do you do today. You brought up Gorilla Monsoon's name. God dang, I used to love when he would do commentary with Jesse the Body Ventura or Bobby Heenan, but old Gorilla, and just the chemistry, the camaraderie, the friendship, the stories that those guys told, these larger-than-life characters in the ring and these storylines. It was a huge part of me, of my childhood. You're living it. You're hanging out with these guys. At some point, when you're hanging around the ring crew or drinking a couple of beers with the guys on the DL, are you thinking this ain't normal, or that's your normal? You came up in it, but now looking back, I mean, what do you think about the cast of characters you came up with? You got to hang out with some of my biggest heroes that I've ever seen in my life.
It was
You're
amazing.
hanging with them on a daily basis.
It was amazing, being able and being accepted. I was kind of like the mascot. I was the kid, they liked. And they would torture me. Oh, my God.
How
ribs,
so?
The ribs, they would play on me.
What kind of ribs?
Right.
You got to drop a couple of rib stories.
All right. Well, Muraco was notorious, okay, because he was old school, belly laughing. He would lock me in a locker, those lockers, lock me in it, boom, and then the boys would blow cigarette smoke in there, or cigar smoke, or whatever else they were doing, and just bang on the locker. Things like that. I remember one time Muraco put me in those big oil drum trash cans, at the arenas and stuff. He put me in and rolled me down the hallway, down a couple steps, 7, 8 years old. It was like, but again, I look back at that, it was, all right, well, what's the kid going to do now after that? So it was continually earning their respect and just keep coming back. And it was fun, those guys. It was a weird bunch of babysitters, but when my dad take me, he was working, getting stuff done, and I'd be, okay, let me get the towels for the guys, or let me take their stuff back, or how can I help, and be involved, and just hanging in the locker room. It was very educational.
What are your recollections of Andre the Giant? Because I got a chance to meet Andre when he passed through WCW. He just came to a television tape at Center Stage. At this time, he was on crutches. He was on his downhill slide. And, man, dude, I was a J-Brone, and I was stunning Steve, and I was nowhere near the league that he was in. He'd already had his huge run, with the WWF. And all of a sudden, I just had to go introduce myself to him. I said, Andre, my name is Steve Austin. I got a chance to shake a man's hand. And then he passed away, but at least I got a chance to meet him. I've heard so many Andre the Giant stories. What was that guy like from your perspective, just hanging around? A dude that's as big and powerful and charismatic as he was, but just an extremely gentle giant, but also extremely, I'm glad you said that, because very feared if he didn't want you in his locker room.
Oh, without question. And not just that. I mean, Andre, I always wanted to be Andre the Giant's tag team partner. So since around age 5, I would walk up to Andre and be like, we're going to be tag team partners. And I would tell my dad, I said, I'm going to grow up to be big like him, not little like you. And so I would always have envision Andre and I being tag team partners. So that kept me going for a while. Then I started learning that he was a giant. Like this is not the norm. I'm not really going to grow that big and all the other stuff. But Andre was always super kind. I think he wanted to belong, and he was very guarded of who he let in. But when you were in, it was like a little family. And it was a special time. Andre had great respect for my grandfather, and that carried on through my dad, down to me, my sister, my mother. So it was like Andre's coming over. I was like, okay. So every few months he'd pop in through town and he'd come over for dinner or whatever. So it was,
when Andre comes over for dinner, your dad's one of the smartest guys I know. Did you go buy a truckload of beer and wine to get ready for Andre, or would he chill over at the McMahon residence? Or he was known as one of probably the greatest drinker in the history of the business.
Oh, forget it. Andre would usually BYO. He usually come with his own stuff just in case you didn't have what he was drinking. Andre got on this kick, and I used to be scared of these things. There were Mexican whiskey bottles. Instead of a worm in them, there was a snake. They would put a whole snake in there. I would look at it. It's like something, in science class, and you're growing up in formaldehyde, and you're looking at them like, oh my God, that's so weird. And then Andre would pop the top, and his hand's so big, a whole big bottle of that stuff. It looked tiny, like you're taking a little nips almost. And so he starts drinking that. I'm like, oh my God. And then sometimes he's like, never eat the snake. I'm like, no problem. I'm not doing it. But he was a gentle giant. But in Andre's story, imagine when he flew, back in the day, first class, seats were even smaller. They're more narrow, so very difficult time traveling. But he would always travel with this big Halliburton. So it was a briefcase, for those who don't know. It's basically a steel briefcase, very durable, and that's what he traveled with. For his, carry-on or whatever. And Andre would walk up, and if there was anything above his seat, in the overhead compartment, Andre would look, and if someone had placed their bag or something like that, he would take it, throw it on the floor, put his little tiny briefcase up in there, and close the cabinet, because as far as Andre was concerned, that space was reserved for his seat, and no one else's stuff should be up there.
I heard the exact same story. He would take whoever's stuff it was, just move it out, put his stuff in and shut it, and he'd go, mine.
Yes, mine.
Dude,
what do you say?
Here's the thing about Andre. It looked like he had 160 teeth. I mean that with respect. But it looked like he had 160 teeth in front. He was bigger than anything you'd ever seen in in the world. So if he says mine, just leave my stuff on the floor. I'm good with it.
And he was because his legs weren't very long. So his torso was massive. So when he was sitting, he still was a huge guy with that big fro and shoulder. Think about a 500-pound man. That's a massive human being. That's me and you together.
Yeah.
That is a huge guy. So he was very intimidating.
Tell me if you ever heard in these stories at some point in time, and I heard this from Jake Roberts, or from Rick Rude, rather. They've been doing a lot of tag matches. It would be Jake Roberts and Ravishing Rick Rude versus Andre the Giant and another partner, whatever. When Rick Rude was in there, Andre loved Rick Rude, so man, he'd bounce around, bing, bang, boom, and all of a sudden tag in Jake. I guess there's a little heat there. And Jake went through a heat and getting phase, at some points in his career. And Andre would get him out there in the middle of the ring, 20 by 20. You've been in a million of them just like I have. And, Jake had that stringy long hair, and he'd have those size 33 feet, and he'd be standing on Jake's hair. Jake would be on his belly. He would have his arms stretched behind Jake and just arching his back and just, he was torturing Jake because he's pulling all of his hair out because he was standing 500 pounds on it.
Yep.
And Jake knew he wasn't going to strong-arm Andre. Everybody knew they weren't going to strong-arm Andre. And he'd just be kind of looking over at Rick Rude in the corner like, tag me. Please tag me. Get me out of here.
We're getting killed.
Did you get a chance to ever talk to Jake, get to know Jake as a person?
Yeah, I ran with Jake for a little while.
Oh, my God.
So as you can imagine, here are kind of my mentors. So let me kind of go.
Please.
Back. So I come in there, and again, being the kid and everything else, so the guys that took me under their wing was Muraco and Roddy Piper.
Jesus.
So right there started my education. Okay.
Stop.
Right there.
Quotation marks around education.
Quotation
Continue.
So, I mean, I'm there with the kings of the frat house. And, and once you're in the frat house, you do what the frat boys do. And you grow up in that element. So by the time I got to college, man, everyone's like, "Oh, let's go out, let's do whatever." I'm like, "This is boring," I'm like, I'm gonna go catch a nap, because I had lived literally rock and roll to the fullest extent. I mean, you can appreciate it.
Yes.
Not many people who are listening to this will be able to appreciate what we've seen in our lifetime, because it was a much different time. There was no internet. There was no, there was no spy cameras. There wasn't a lot of stuff. So it was a very interesting time where everything just went on. It was crazy.
So who else were your mentors? Don the Rock Muraco. God dang, that guy, I just used to love to watch that physique of his, him in action, the power, the persona. Roddy Piper, hanging out with that guy. And when you say, those guys are the kings of the frat house, well said.
Then I kind of graduated a little bit, and then I was running with, it was me and Kyoto, and running with Sean and Marty. The Nasty Boys were all contemporaries and buddies. Kurt Hennig was kind of my next guy who was mentoring me a little bit. Again, guys just a little bit older that you learn a ton from, but oh my God, the ribs were so brutal. It's like, man, I'm just glutton for punishment.
I'm so glad you brought up Mr. Perfect Kurt Hennig's name. I've told this story a million times. I'll tell it again. I came into the WWF at the time. It's now WWE. First day in television somewhere in the Northeast. Kurt says, "Hey, kid, come here. I want you to meet somebody." Took me in the truck to introduce me to the guys at the production truck, Kevin Dunn. Because this guy can help you out a whole lot. He didn't have to do that. He's trying to help me form relationships. I didn't know your dad. First 6 months I was there as a ringmaster. I don't know, he brought me in. I went and saw him twice in Greenwich at his house. I know they wanted to bring me in as a mechanic, didn't sign. Ended up signing. But, he was one of those guys that was so generous that I hope that there's still guys like that around today in the locker room. But, he helped me when I first came to the company. And I'm coming in, and theoretically, Shane, I'm competition. Wasn't in his league work-wise yet, but I was competition. Here's this guy helping me out. But my point is, Kurt, I've never seen that guy in all the years I know him, God rest his soul. I've never seen that guy in a bad mood, or if he was having a bad day, making the most of it. But he was one of the most notorious ribbers in the history of the business. What did you learn from Kurt Hennig, or tell me some stories of some of the ribs that you saw him pull on people?
Well, I'll just talk about a couple with me. So again, being the kid and like, all right, well, I was always the one, go get the car. We get the car. And then, all right, well, give me the keys or whatever. So, all right, we'll meet at 7 a.m. We gotta get out of here early. So I'd be out there at 7. Gone. He's gone. So I'd hitch a ride. I'd have to wait for somebody, hitchhike. I'm like, Kurt. He goes, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I forgot." Now that didn't take very long for me to catch on. Like do all that stuff. You'd have these huge oil drum trash cans, those big things, leaning up, because a lot of the hotels we stayed in were outside, motels really. The Night's End, home with the purple bedspread, because we're healing a room, we're sleeping 2-3 to a room. Who gets the box spring? Who got the floor? Anything to save a buck. And I think it was like $25 anyway, but we're just like, well, 3-way split, perfect, because we weren't there that long, and that's also where the bars came in. And to be so important, because you wanted to be a little numb when you went to bed in these places. Don't know what's crawling on you or whatever. But it just got back to the fun of it. But anyway, getting back to the door, so that big oil drum be full, and you'd open that door, and all of a sudden the waiter would just be like, because you had it leaned up, and it would just, whatever you were wearing, if you had your bags in your hand or whatever, everything was soaked. It's like the whole carpet got soaked. So
and it's the door opens inward. He's leaning the trash can full of water, trash, everything else up against the door. So when he knocks on the door, you just open it.
Or you just open it in the morning. You're like, oh, you're coming out. And you're like, son of a bitch.
Really?
You're like, seriously? Soaked. Soaked.
Were you ever there when a lot of the guys, this wasn't real going on too much when I came in, but, you wrestle in a lot of high school gyms, college gyms, stuff like even some of the small shows, Shane, anywhere with some lockers. And there's always inevitably a combination lock that's not locked up. Right. Of course, it's a spin-around lock. There's no way, unless you're a master locksmith, you're going to find out the combo. So they loop that thing through a couple of your belt loops.
Yep.
Through your pair of jeans. I mean, there's been guys, you might have 3, 4, 5 locks, and you're either going to cut your belt loops or you're going to the next town with a bunch of locks on your pants.
Exactly.
Or they would do the old classic, if you've got just a pair of denim jeans like you got on right now, just tying just one knot in that leg and just pulling that thing, 2 guys pull on each end, just one knot, just one spin through there, and you pull that thing tight. You talk about a pain in the ass to try to get that knot out. That's the kind of stuff that went on in those kind of things.
Oh.
Yeah, wet.
And then they lock your bag, and then if you get smart and you lock your own bag, well, then your bag be in the shower where everything is just soaked. Yeah. They just throw the whole thing in there. There's other additives that they used to throw in bags. I mean, depends if a guy deserved it or not. And that goes back to the locker room being different. The locker room, once again, about earning your stripes. You had to earn your stripes. And, back in the day, and there was a hierarchy. And if you messed up, well, then wrestling court, Taker being the judge, and rightfully so. But even prior to that, it was you had to have the proper respect and show the proper respect to the guys who were there before you and teaching you to be like, okay, kid, let's see what you got. You've been through it. Different territories, different time. There was always a head of the locker room, and you had to go through that. And that learning is so crucial and so important, which doesn't exist today. Let me rephrase. It's just so much different today.
In your estimation, why is it different today?
Well, the territory system primarily dried up. So
I like the way you said that. So I got to call you on that.
So
dried up.
It dried up. So therefore, it used to be by the time you got to New York, you were polished. You were ready to go.
Right.
So that kind of dried up.
God dang it. Dude, you opened it up. What did you think? Because your grandfather, when your dad bought the business from Vince Sr., your grandfather was alive for how much longer? Because your dad started to want to go into other promoters' territories. And that was something that you did not do.
Right, don't rock the boat.
Yeah, so your grandfather wasn't real fond of that. But your dad had a different vision of what the wrestling world could and would end up being. So what were your thoughts when you saw your dad taking the business in the direction that he took it?
Well, again, growing up in it and just knowing that my dad was gone. So primarily where I grew up, a lot of what I saw was our own product because it's the Northeast product.
Correct.
So everywhere I went, which was, through those areas, living in Maryland and Connecticut and Massachusetts, New York, again, you saw that one product.
Yes.
And again, no internet, no way to see other stuff. So I would start to sample other things like through magazines. I'd be like, oh, well, look, how about this guy over here, this other territory, and that stuff. So starting to get the idea, and my dad saying that, all right, we're expanding. We're doing this thing called syndication. So we're taking the same tape, and what would air in New York week 1 would then bicycle around, and that same, it would be a week later, in Chicago, and a week later it'd be in, wherever it's going to be. So then it started getting bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where in its heyday, and this is where WWE started getting into its own sales force because, advertisers would be like, oh, it's so hard to sell, it's wrestling, it's this type of stuff. So that's when Vince said, great, we'll sell it because syndication was barter. It was basically 14 minutes, the station gets 7, you get 7, to sell, and then you start doing it that way.
Okay.
And in the heyday, what we grew up on Saturday and Sunday mornings, WWF at the time had over 330 syndicated stations across the United States. That is a massive network. That's your own network.
Yes.
Saturday and Sunday morning. And it was consistent time slot, pretty much either between 10 and 12 in the morning, every Saturday and Sunday morning. They owned that for a long time. So that's really what we built, what Vince was able to do. And you would obviously insert your card-specific information when you're touring in that area. 5 weeks away. We're coming to Madison Square Garden. Coming to Philly. We're coming to the Spectrum. Here it is. Or if you go down to Charlotte or wherever we're going to be. And that's when you start doing the local inserts that would be in there.
So your dad's growing a business. He's the other territories are drying up. Your dad has told me that back in the day, and I don't know what age you would have been at when some of these things happened, or you would recollect them, that he'd gotten death threats from some of the other owners of the territories. They thought he was just crazy as a outhouse rat and this is never going to fly. And he pissed a lot of people off. Any recollections of those kind of things going on?
Yeah, I remember walking in a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear between my parents, and my dad was talking about one of those things. My mom obviously being very concerned. And just hearing my dad's philosophy of, I believe in this product. I believe in what we're doing, and that's it. That's the vision. That's what we're going forward with. And then you obviously hear, I won't get into too much private talk, but my mom was opposed. She said, well, is it worth anything? Is it worth losing your life? That type of thing. And my dad said, he's bluffing. So I remember hearing that one conversation, and I'm paraphrasing, but that's the gist.
I get you.
That's the gist. So scary time, when you're young and you're hearing things like that.
When you look at I want to talk about you, but when you look back.
I got one story for you.
Oh, go.
Can I go back?
Yeah.
When you were talking about meeting Andre the Giant and Stunning Steve, and when you came to as the ringmaster at first WWF, one of the biggest things, I drove my dad crazy for about 4 months before you got here, and everywhere around the house I would just walk around and be like, "Hey, Dad," and I'd be doing the Hollywood Blonde with the movie camera.
Yeah.
You guys are doing. Hey, and he finally got so annoyed with me. He goes, "Would you stop with this stuff?"
Yeah.
So I was a big fan of you guys, you and Brian, and all that back then. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
What do you think about the competition? I mean, you could probably had an eye for talent or whatever. I'm not asking you about myself and Brian as a Hollywood Blonde, but when you saw NWA or WCW stuff like AWA, because Jesus, that's where Vince would become some of his biggest stars from. What do you think about the other products? Because to me, looking at what your dad was thinking is like, these guys are outdated, or they're not seeing the big picture here like your dad saw. Hey, I'm going to expand, and Jesus, I don't know. I know there were some thin times there when things were just scraping by, but doesn't seem like the other guys just had either the balls or the money to compete with Vince. Is any of that correct?
I don't think. My personal view is that the promoters there were stuck in some of their old school ways where they didn't want to spend the money that it will take to compete on that level. And they wanted to pocket more. Where Vince was all about invest. Make $1, put it back in the business.
And that gigantic syndication thing.
That was at that point,
right.
The territories were very, very small. And there was primarily WWE, because then we were doing 3 shows a night pretty much, and TV was done differently. It was recorded 3 to 4 weeks in advance, so the guys just be on tour 10, 15, 20-day runs, so they covered a lot of different markets that way.
Going back to the way the locker rooms changed, with there being really nowhere else to go, you have your other promotions that are still around, Ring of Honor, TNA, or whoever's running. I knew when I was in WCW that WWE at the time was the big leagues. I knew that ultimately that's where you want to go. Mm-hmm. So all the other territories are gone now. Because there really is nowhere else to go, are the guys in the locker room not as free to explore? Almost like Chris Rock with the cowbell. More cowbell, explore the space with that cowbell, that famous Saturday Night Live skit. You feel like guys are walking on eggshells these days because there is nowhere to go, and for fear of, hey man, if I get fired here, I can't go nowhere else.
I'm sure there's some of that. The freedom to kind of try things out is limited a whole lot more. I mean, you can do a whole lot more than on house shows. And that's, as you're well aware, when you're trying certain things, did this work, did it not work? When it comes to TV, it is so finite of the amount of time you have. Going back to what we originally started talking about of telling a story, it's hard to tell a good story in 4 minutes if you have 4 minutes of action.
Correct.
So you either gotta cut elements out and you gotta go right to the heat, or whatever story you're trying to get across, how's that pushing your story forward to the next week, or eventually building until you have the time to tell it in pay-per-view. So that's a big distinction. I think a lot of the guys also, again, with the territory system drying up, they've never had the ability to really go try it somewhere else. So they don't know. It's like any experience. If you went out to play football and you're playing, sandlot football, and you're like, oh, this is pretty good. Then you play some organized football in high school, and all of a sudden you get not clean. You're like, wow, this is a lot harder. You get to the college level, you're like, woo, this is a whole lot more difficult. So there's not that maturation process, that it used to be. So we've had to recreate it. And that's really what NXT is now there to be. Even before and Paul, Triple H has done a phenomenal job, with a whole cast of guys of really building that territory. Dusty, prior to him, and Paul's taken it, to a whole nother level. Prior to that, that's originally what we wanted ECW to be when we first purchased it. I wrote the business plan for ECW just to be that AAA system, because we needed guys, whether you're coming up or coming down. You have certain guys that are going to peak. You can't stay at the peak forever. So as they come down, we'll start taking some of that knowledge and take a kid, and say, all right, here is in the ring. You can educate them of why you're doing this, or feel the crowd. Let me teach you how to do this. All right, come at me, let's start. You got him. Give me a little bit more heat, or shut him down. So it's... No,
I was just wondering what went wrong with ECW, other than the fact that people thought, it meant just... When under the big banner of WWE, it had to be to PC, when ECW was louder, bigger, badder, bloodier, more violent than anything else. Do you think ECW didn't make it just because they had to tone it down too much?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that was how they distinguished themselves, with some of those crazy things. But people remember some of the crazy stuff, but there was a lot of great matches that didn't have the crazy stuff in there in ECW. So we had to tone it down, but, the whole Attitude Era, as we went through, we weren't PG. We were PG-13, if not a little higher than that. So we were having a blast. So I don't think ECW suffered that. Everything's kind of toned down now because of acceptance and sponsorships and advertisers and just kind of where, America, the American value system sits at the moment. So from an advertising standpoint of where people are putting their money.
Right.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just, you said the Attitude Era. I've heard some people that were having runs back in the day, they look back at the Attitude Era and think, that wasn't really that great of a time. I thought a lot of the stuff was too risque. Didn't think a lot of the matches were that good, and just were kind of, didn't really think much of the Attitude Era. And I'm thinking to myself, I was right there smack dab in the middle of all of it. I was having a blast. We were sold out every single night wherever we went. There were some of the greatest hands, in the business. In our locker room, literally the whole locker room should be in the Hall of Fame, or will be by the time it's all said and done. I thought it was, from a money-generating standpoint, it was the most productive period in the history of pro wrestling. When you think about the Attitude Era versus right now, what's this, the PG system or the reality era, whatever, I don't mean to label and call it something that it's not, but I don't think you need to go back to the Attitude Era with some of the over-the-top stuff we did. Some of the Val Venus shower stuff. There's a lot of over-the-top stuff.
Too far.
Yeah. So maybe a little bit too far. But always push in the creative envelope. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing for me is spontaneity. When I'm watching the show, I'd like to see things be a little more spontaneous now. What do you think about that?
Are you...
Because I think those old Monday Night Raws, and there was another show called Nitro that we were competing with, and it was everything but the kitchen sink. Every single Monday, we was throwing everything at the fans.
Right.
Holy smokes, we were doing these crazy numbers, and just when you turned on the television, whichever show you were watching or whichever one you were partial to, you didn't know what was going to happen. And I think there was that era about it, which I think was really special. And I think... Dude, I watched the pay-per-view last night. I really enjoyed that show. That was a damn good pay-per-view. And did you see it?
Yes.
I thought Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman crushed it at the end. Roman's really coming around with the performance in that match. Braun Strowman's got superstar written all over him. It was a really good event. you got to feel like anything could happen at any time, and sometimes I'm like, man, I'm feeling like maybe these guys have been a little micromanaged.
I could see that point of view. We're trying to let's separate the two shows for a second, Raw and SmackDown.
Okay.
SmackDown, I don't know if you'd agree with this, has a lot more spontaneity than Raw. And I also think it's because it's not as regulated as much as Raw. Raw is, was number one. It's, really Raw just came out of Monday Night at the Garden, going back to my grandfather
Right.
and everything else. And then my dad said, oh, this would be amazing. We should just turn this into Raw, which has been a humongous success. And it is the longest running regularly scheduled TV show in all of cable. SmackDown, I think, is number 2 or number 3. It's right behind it, and that's ours too. But anyway, getting back to SmackDown Live, I think, and kudos to Brian James and the creative group there. Everybody's working very hard to create more of that spontaneity and to give guys and girls opportunities that they would never have had if it's all under one brand. So we try to take, again, going back to the theme of our entire podcast here, is having the right opportunity, but telling the right stories. And what's your story? And let's make the best of these two guys. Some people will say, oh, we don't even care about those talent. Well, they don't yet because they don't know their story.
Right.
So let's make them care.
How much different do you, in your eyes, is the NXT developmental system versus the territory system as it pertains to the amount of time it takes to get a person from starting stages where they've never been in a ring before, a fan of the business, whatever, first lockup, to when they're ready to go out there and main event or just be on a live television show? Because you just talked about rites of passage. You talked about guys, being in the locker room, having to earn respect. Mm-hmm. You got to learn the trade. One of the best places I found to work was in the USWA in the early 90s because it was a weekly territory system. Every single day of the week, we're in the exact same town, and you had to change your stuff up. Or with people that traveled all the shows would know that you were trying to duplicate the same match from a time before. And
right.
So that repetition and being out in front of those people and falling on your face and having to, just adjust on the fly, it really made me pick up the business a lot faster than a person, I think maybe in a school setting or in an NXT setting. Would you agree or disagree with that?
They're not apples to apples.
Correct.
Again, if you're thrown into a system where you have to do that, then you either do it or you're crushed. To your point, you'd be booed out of the building. Now you don't draw, and the promoter says bye-bye. With NXT, it's different because we're creating the talent literally. And there's an immense amount of athletic talent coming in. You're like, okay, from all walks of life, whether it's a guy, a construction worker that was amazing talent, or a former NFL player, or just an amazing athlete. They're coming in, men and women, and getting like, okay, well, do you have the aptitude? The thing with NXT now is we're doing so much on-the-job training. So much happens. Even now when you're getting up into Raw and SmackDown, seasoned guys would never be considered seasoned back in the day because they haven't had the experience to go through stuff. So a lot of that, but it's also, again, a different time where people, you said earlier, fans will go on the internet and they want to watch it, but they also want to kind of ruin their good time by critiquing. They're like, oh, this guy should have done this, X, Y, Z. Well, again, those people fans have never really put themselves in that environment. It's hard. It's, I just watched the Combine, the NFL Combine.
I did too.
I'm sorry, the draft.
Yeah.
And we're saying how exciting it was for those guys, and my boys were very pumped. But it's not like you put on a helmet, you go to the Combine, which is where I was going, you run a 4.5, and they're like, okay, awesome, we like you, you're a good kid, and we know we can help teach you the position in your gold. Our business is so unique because not only do you have to have the athleticism, you have to be an amazing storyteller, and you have to win the crowd. When the crowd likes you or likes to boo you, either way, now you got something. But they got to care about you. And that's the stories that you tell in the ring and your character and your persona and what you're doing within the confines of that ring. So that's the magic, and it's very difficult to get in there, and it's hard to teach that that special sauce.
The special sauce is kind of that X factor because, going to, let's just say NXT or any wrestling school or whatever the program is, we'll call it NXT. You're going in there, you've got the best professors, teachers in the world, and they're going to teach you the mechanics, basic psychology, and the psychology will apply in most cases. And you get to the advanced levels, more weaved tales or stories. But it's up to you to be able to take exactly what everybody else has learned. And now you have to go win that crowd over. And you got to win that crowd over by either, A, making them like or love you, B, making them hate or dislike you. And that's up to you.
Right.
And really, that can't be taught, in my opinion. What did you do to make that crowd feel you? Because, hey, dude, you're not the greatest mechanic in the world. You're a mechanic. I was a pretty good mechanic. I wasn't the best, but there was something about me that the people could gravitate towards. How would you describe how Shane O'Mac, was able to win that crowd over?
Well, at first it was heat because, again, had a great story. Part of the corporation, boss's kid. We played up the whole Greenwich, Connecticut thing.
Silver
Spoon. I mean, it was perfect. And it was also, I was the foil before you got to Vince. So there was always that, which is, had several beatings from you. It's been a lot of fun. But getting into it, to your point, when you were dominating and it was your turn and you're shining, and we're just talking again the babyface aspect, you're a house of fire and you're blowing your comeback. Well, I'm on my heels. I'm flying around for you because that is my job. We're telling that physical story. And you're bringing it because your energy level was super high. And I'll say, you and I, we had great chemistry in the ring.
Yep.
And it was just, we knew that feeling. And again, I'm getting goosebumps now. I'm feeling that crowd. I could hear them roaring and go, get it again, get me. It's like we're calling stuff in there. Wow, it's getting excitement. But it was also when, there was that cutoff point and it was my time to get heat on anything. Man, I had to turn it on because I had to make it believable. Somehow, whether I pick something up or hit you with a chair or whatever it was, back in the day, I had to keep on it, use other guys, to do my dirty work for me, which was even more heat because I was directing and I did get in your face like I did it, But that was the storytelling elements of things. So the technical nature, again, so that's kind of the birth of it was bad guy villain, and then it grew out of kind of protecting my sister, trying to get her out of trouble, so being the good guy brother, and then separating, in the father-son issues, and you're just like, okay, everyone's always felt that, the boy is becoming a man, and the old man wants to keep him down, and all that other stuff. So always been very blessed, and being in there with amazing talent, that it's way easier when you're in there with top guys who are making that physical story happen and knowing what to do specifically to tell that story than if you went in there with green guys who would have no idea, then that would be crickets.
Your dad is a very headstrong individual. I would say you are as well.
He is.
And you are.
I am, and you are too.
So how much would you guys bicker back and forth when it come time to just finesse out, the details of a storyline? If Vince said, God dang, this is the direction we're going, but you say, no, Dad, I think we ought to do it this way. And how many times did y'all butt head? I mean, we're a lot of times on the same page, I can imagine. But
a lot of times
was there ever a time when he would listen to you? Because I know your dad's, I love him, but he's an egomaniac. But to his credit, he's always willing to listen to someone else's idea. But how is that when you're a son?
There's less patience, from him on that. And at the end of the day, when he said enough's enough, it was enough.
Right.
Now, of course, I'd have to push it one more time just to make sure he heard, And that's usually when he'd blow his stack or whatever, and that goes back to father-son stuff. But it's always been, at the end of the day, a respect factor, because not only is, it's tough working in a family business. Not only is he your dad, but then he's your boss. And that's like, okay, I said no. Or if he said, we're going to paint the room blue, it's blue. I go, yeah, but this green is really nice. People are like, okay, but it's blue. Got it. But leaving the room, There was never. I would never say anything else like, I really wanted to do green, but you said blue. And it was like, blue, we're on the page, and this is the marching order. Everything's blue, and it's beautiful, and we're going.
All right, Shane, I want to segue into talking about the difference between when the business was 100% kayfabe to what it's like now. And we'll do that right after I show a little appreciation to another sponsor who makes this podcast possible, TrueCar. If you're in the market for a car, then you need to check out TrueCar. TrueCar gives you the pricing information you need to feel confident about your purchase. When you register with TrueCar, you'll see what other people in your local area paid for the car you want. And from there, you can connect with a local TrueCar certified dealer and enjoy a more confident car buying experience. TrueCar shows you real pricing on actual inventory, so you see competitive pricing offered to you by TrueCar certified dealers for vehicles that are actually on their lots. And you'll also see all the dealer incentives before you get to the lot, so you can feel confident about the price when you show up. TrueCar makes car buying easy, no matter if you're looking for a brand new or a used vehicle. And the stats don't lie. Over 3 million cars have been sold to TrueCar users by the TrueCar Certified Dealer Network. There are over 13,000 dealers in that network with some 700,000 pre-owned vehicles available. So do yourself a favor and go to TrueCar for your next car buying experience. TrueCar doesn't just make the process easier, it'll also save you some money. TrueCar users save an average of over $3,000 off MSRP. So when you're ready to buy a new or used car, visit TrueCar to enjoy a better car buying experience. Some features not available in all states.
Hey everybody, it's Shaq. Have you had a chance to check out the #1 podcast on PodcastOne? That's right, the Big Podcast with Shaq. Me and my co-hosts John Kincaid and Rob Jenners, we have a blast. With way more than just sports, we have the biggest guests from entertainment to the NBA.
Dwight, let me give you some championship advice. Let it fuel you, but never let it piss you off. Because you are sensitive, baby.
I am. I think all big guys. I know you are. The Big Podcast with Shaq, with a new episode every Monday at PodcastOne.com.
I wanted to ask you about the difference between when the business was 100% kayfabe to now, or in the past 10 years, 15 years, whatever it's been. I mean, you know, everybody knows what's up. How was kayfabe back in the day? Because I heard in the Mid-South territory, Bill Watts, if he caught the Hills and the Babies, you know, or drinking together in the bar, this, that, or whatever, you were either fired or fined or both.
Right.
And that's just the way it was because everybody protected the business.
Never broke kayfabe.
What do you think about that? The death of kayfabe. And I mean, this is Jesus Christ. I mean, what is that, 15, 20 years, 25? That's the slow.
The slow build.
Yeah.
I think the kayfabe nature started, it became more and more difficult to keep kayfabe because, you know, with the explosion in the 80s, you know, Wrestlemania 1 and 85, and then it became mainstream. You're on the cover of Sports Illustrated. It was huge. And then as we continually generated up, and again, the late 90s and the 2000s, again, more into the Attitude Era, the notoriety and the popularity of WWE or F at the time was water cooler talk. It was everywhere. So when that happens and you have interest, people want to know more about each character. They just don't want to know, you know, about the Undertaker. They want to know about the individual who's behind an Undertaker. Like, what's he do? Does he go grocery shopping? You know, it's like, you know, I mean, it must be so easy for him to get stuff off there. Like, what does he do? What's he do at home? You know, interest. And that's just human nature of getting in that. So it became harder and harder. And again, with everyone with a telephone, phone camera, and security cameras and everything else now, it's extremely hard to do kayfabe. Sometimes we do it. Like my return was kayfabe. Right. No one knew.
Yeah.
It was like because 3 people knew, and that was it. But that's what you have to do. You have to keep it really tight.
Certain things, you know, like I said, stuff like that, you can still kayfabe.
Yep.
But as far as the business, everybody knows what's up.
Yep.
Hey, boxing. Your great-grandfather, he promoted boxing, basketball, and baseball. Your great-grandfather,
right.
Jess. And so, boxing.
Well, he was the matchmaker for Tex Rickard at the Garden.
Yes. Boxing. Legit sport, right?
As they say, of course. As they say.
Dude, got a grin like a crocodile sitting across the table from me.
Well, there's been
here?
There's been so many elements of boxing back in the day of, you know, who's taking a dive,
legit,
who's
right?
not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it was a legit dive.
Yeah.
They legit went down for a certain reason.
They protect kayfabe better than wrestling did.
Well, it was a different influence,
Right.
You're going back to a lot of mafia-controlled things. Gambling was huge. Wrestling always had the connotation of, okay, well, the guys used to get mad because when people would say it was fake, what they really meant was it was a predetermined winner. So you couldn't bet on it or things like that. And a lot of the old school guys, if you said fake, would box your ears or stretch you or whoever said that to them. Because they're like, hey, man, because they had such pride of what they did.
Right.
Boxing had a whole different element to it because it was, a sport, but it was, again, influenced with some people who wanted to make a bigger profit off certain things.
Let's jump out of that. I want to jump into something right here. You said if you said wrestling was fake, some guy might stretch you, box your ears, do this, that, or whatever. So that brings me to tough guys. Who are some of the legit tough guys that you've experienced in your days in the business?
Back in the day?
Back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, everybody. You had to be tough to survive in that locker room. And it doesn't mean you're the baddest, but you had to hold your ground.
I agree.
You had to stand up for yourself. Even though you're going to get killed, if you showed weakness or you cowered, oh my gosh, you were then, you were kicked out of the locker room, or then you were considered weak and probably run off for a while and the ribs would start on you and stuff like that. But legit, like tough guys, Bruiser Brody, tough dude.
Did you get a chance to meet Brody?
Yeah, Brody. Andre, let me say Muraco. Roddy was tough. He was very tough with his mouth. Roddy was always the first to throw hands. Wasn't always the best, but he was in there. But tough guy was Snuka was Jimmy. Sika, often Sika, specifically Sika. He was extremely tough guy. Matt Bourne, played Doink.
Oh, no, I'm glad you said the Matt Bourne name, because, boy, I tell you what, Matt was...
He was tough.
If you got on the wrong side of Matt, you better bring a sandwich.
It's going to be a long day.
Yeah.
Rude. Kurt in his own way,
Yeah, all those guys, most of those guys from Minnie are straight up. If you did something, they'd tell you to face, hey, man, this is what's up, we got to settle a score.
That's
That's what I always appreciated about those guys. Oh, you didn't throw Ming in there, who's forever on everybody's list. I mean, that's kind of like an afterthought because it's always Ming. But none of those guys, in my estimation, was very mean-spirited. I mean, they weren't bullies. They were just badass guys. And a lot of times it was the drunk guys at the bars wanting to pick fight with the wrestlers because what they thought what they were doing was fake.
Right.
Here's a tough question for you. Just a tough subject for me, but I wanted to ask you because it impacted my career and my relationship with your father so much. I was working down there in Georgia. I can't remember the town, and I was working with Flair in a cage, and I was having the time of my life. But before I got there, I took a little nap in my hotel room. I got a call from Jim Ross, and I was going to do the favors for Brock Lesnar, and I didn't like that news, so I told him so. And he called your father, Vince. Vince said, hey, man, give him a call whenever I got done with the work that evening. I called him. It was late in the morning, about 2 his time, and he was letting me know what was going to go on, and I didn't like it. So I decided, I was thinking to myself, I always like talking to your dad, man-to-man, face-to-face, because just like we're talking, like if you're telling me, hey, man, this is what you want to do, he goes, yes, that's what we're doing. And I'm thinking to myself, well, you can probably look at my eyes and see, I'm not really digging what you're saying. But obviously didn't know that I was going to no-show, and I no-showed. So all of a sudden they're in Atlanta, they're in a bad way, and I thought the match between myself and Brock Lesnar should have been, first of all, way down the road. Could have been huge money, but then because I was so fed up at the time, and I was so hot, and as you know, God dang, Shane, it's hard to find somebody that draws big money. I was able to do that. And so the locker room was able to, the organization was able to. Great storylines, great people to work with, so I don't want to take all the credit. But I left the damn company. I was probably gone 6 or 8 months. Do you remember that time?
I do.
What did your father say to you about the day Stone Cold Steve Austin took his ball and went to the house? Or how did it affect him? Because he called me 3 times. I let all 3 calls go to voicemail. I never called him back. And that was on me because the man reached out 3 times to me. And because I was such an ass, and so I was running pretty hard, And I can't believe they'd want to do that to me at this point in my career, and I decided to take my stuff and go back to the crib. Did he sell that at all? Did he hate me?
It was more, you don't sell yourself short. When you're talking, yes, you had a lot of guys around you and the business was doing very well, but you were the guy. You're the one that the company had the spotlight on. You were the one who was drawing the houses, and everything was built around you. So when you have that much equity and stake and you have your number one player in there, and that's the one who draws money, all of a sudden just say, I'm out. Well, it's very devastating, obviously, to everybody else underneath. And everyone felt it. Just like, wow. So, you specifically, you let a lot of people down.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean,
the whole lot group.
To the guy setting the ring up, because everyone gets paid off the house, as you're well aware. Everyone eats off the same plate, and when the business is pumping, we all eat a little bit more. And when it's not, well, unfortunately, we have crumbs to split up. So that was a huge thing. So Vince was hurt professionally and personally because you guys had been building a good relationship. You would always, if you guys did have a disagreement, you would settle it quickly and talk about it. But at the end of the day, when it got down to, all right, this is the vision we're going, and when I said, we paint the room blue, well, you didn't want to paint the room blue at that time. You wanted to do something else, and you took your paint and went somewhere else. So that was a big blow personally as well, because, again, it's the machine, and we all put effort into building Stone Cold Steve Austin and the company and everything else around it. And when that cog leaves, it's like, ooh, wow, it didn't feel good. It didn't make any of us feel good. It's like, you let us down, man.
Yeah.
And, you said that when you came back and things like that. And it's tough. It is very tough. And what people also don't realize is when you get to a position like that, you can burn out fast because the demand on that talent specifically, now you can speak, far better than I can because you've been living through it, but any top talent on top for that long, the pressure is so high. You start burning the candle at both ends. You start second guessing. You start thinking, you're like, how can I be better? Oh, they're not going to like me today, whatever. And you start becoming your own worst enemy. And it's success sometimes is very hard to deal with. And, you can elaborate on it. Rock did the same thing. Hogan, Macho Man. It is, it's that rare air where you start thinking, oh, I'm not going to have it again. And then it becomes almost like a paranoia. And it gets in there. So getting back to it. So, again, everybody was hurt. Vince was hurt, again, from the company standpoint and emotionally, personally.
What do you think personally, though? You think, God dang, that piece of trash, we done spent all this money promoting his ass. I've been out there doing stuff with him. They've been doing stuff for him. I mean, you had...
Well, again, I felt let down.
Probably you felt like I stuck a knife in your back and twisted it.
Well, I felt let down, but it's also, I've been through that before with other talent.
Right.
So if it was the first time, I'd be like, wow, okay. But again, I've seen this movie.
Fourth generation.
I've been through a lot of them.
Yeah.
And hearing the stories of this guy did this and this guy did this, and and what to look out for and things like that, and it's a bitter pill to swallow no matter what. But then you also just feel bad all the way around. You feel bad for you because obviously you're upset that you bailed. You had enough where you just freaked out and just had to bail. You feel bad for the talent that we're supposed to come up right underneath that you're supposed to be working the angles with that they're going to eat. And you feel all the way bad all the way down to the ring crew, TV guys, all of us. So it's like, all right, plan B, and now let's move forward.
It's one thing when a guy gets hurt, but when you do what I did, and we'll stop. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I've always said that was the worst mistake I made in the history of my wrestling career. And if I could do only one thing different than that, obviously, well, I wouldn't have turned heel at 17, but the biggest thing would have been I would have showed up in Atlanta and talked to the old man, your father, face to face, and hammered the damn details out, because we would have. But just being on that road and then hearing that voice and those, I just like, are you kidding me? I just thought they were throwing a couple of roadblocks at me here or there that just didn't make any sense. I was like, what is going on? Why? I mean, we're making a lot of money. everything is full, and now you want to do the JOB now when it's not time, so it just rubbed me the wrong way at the wrong time, and I bailed. I just wanted to buzz you about it, because as long as I've known you, we've never talked about it. So, nonetheless, I'll never forget I got that card from Jim Ross, and he put me in touch with Vince, and we set up a meeting in a high-rise hotel in Houston. I'll tell you, Shane, your dad's a very intense guy. And as you well know, but I tell you what, when I showed up on about the 27th floor of that skyscraper and I walked in that room first, I was thinking, man, I don't know what's going to happen. We're either going to hug or one of us is going through that window. And we ended up hugging, and I ended up coming back to work, and we put our differences aside. I want to talk about two quick things before we shut this thing down. We have a dinner appointment. We're going to go eat a steak, and I'm going to have a glass of whiskey. I wanted to ask you about WrestleMania 32 with The Undertaker. You go out there and you got your trademark entrance, and boy, I know you, Shane, and all of a sudden you kind of hit that vein on your arms, and that's that adrenaline feeling. That's kind of that subliminal, kind of, if you know what it is, here's what it is, and that's mainline. I'm talking about the good stuff. I ain't talking about the bad stuff.
Yep.
So I know you was feeling that crowd, and then also I saw you when you went out there, a couple of those chest bumps. And that's kind of another thing where I was really hoping for a good response, and God dang, you gave it to me. I just kind of like giving them that love back, right? So you go out there, and then here comes your three boys. Y'all go out there, and you drop off the kids with your wife, and you go out there, and you stand in the ring. Okay, you guys had a great match. Two things. I want to talk about the big bump, and I know you've discussed it with Mick Foley, but we'll talk about it real quick here. But tell me about being in the ring in front of 101,000 people, and Undertaker's music comes on, the lights drop, and boom, here he comes, and it takes him damn near 5 minutes to get there, because before you start, the first time I wrestled Undertaker, I just came to WWF then, and here comes Taker, and in the back of my mind, I thought of a lot of things that I wanted to do to him or with him, and, some stuff I'd call in the ring. That's how we worked back in. And all of a sudden, the lights drop down, Taker's music hits, they smoke up the arena, all the lighters go up, and I forgot every single thing that I had wanted to do, because I had a lot of respect for the guy, but I just loved his entrance. What were you thinking coming in off that? First of all, tell me about the adrenaline rush you got, because a lot of guys will get that, and you know how long that runway was, but a lot of guys will blow up walking to the ring just based off emotions and adrenaline.
Well, going back, having my kids out there was one of the main reasons I came back to the company, period. Was I never was able to perform live in front of my boys. Then they would always ask me, would you ever go back, Dad? Would you ever do that? I said, well, if the right opportunity was there, then I'd consider it, being there for you guys. So that was one of the major deciding factors, is my sons had never seen me. So to have them come out with me in front of that crowd, and at AT&T Stadium where the Cowboys play, it was surreal. It's a moment that I selfishly replay in my mind all the time, because there's nothing greater than that, having your three sons, fifth generation, running out there with you in the very event your father created, and we're in the 32nd one of them, 32nd WrestleMania. And having them come down, I was so proud of them. And, people say, oh, did you rehearse it? I was like, no. I asked them about 5 minutes before I came out. I said, you guys want to come out with me? And they were like, really? I said, oh, yeah. So when they came out, they just took to it like water. I was like, I couldn't believe it. My two older boys specifically, I was like, look at these little guys. They were like giving me the whole feeling and like, yeah, come on, crowd. I was like, oh, my God, made for it, Anyway, I dropped them off. But getting into Undertaker's entrance, yeah, it's something special and eerie, because he comes down. It does change, and even though
it does,
we talk, the business is, as we would say, a work or a predetermined outcome. When you get in there with someone that has that intensity we're talking about, whether it be yourself or Rock, different, but Taker has a special one. It's an eerie thing, because he looks through you. He's not looking around. Hey, how you doing? Not nicey eyes. Literally, you're like, wow, he's gonna kill me. Then in those first couple of hands, I thought he was. But very, very special. And again, being on the receiving end of that, you're like, wow. And you get caught up in it, like you said. You're caught up and mesmerized with what's happening and the crowd and the feeling when he turns the lights on, boom, and all of a sudden, it was the opening spot, if you will, where he takes the cage and closes it. It's like, all right, now you're mine. It's like, wow. And then people just started setting it. And then he takes his hat off, and he comes in, stands toe-to-toe. It's like, wow, this is electric.
Do you think anybody could have, and it's speculation, I'll put it out there, I don't think anybody could have pulled off the Undertaker gimmick like Mark Calloway did. And that's speculation because no one else got a chance to try it. But I swear to God, when I first saw that guy come out, and I'd already seen him in WCW, hell, I wrestled him down in USWA, and in WCW, he's this menacing force that they don't know what to do with. Saw him as the Punisher. That was a pretty damn good gimmick. All of a sudden, you come up with this Undertaker thing, and I'm thinking, man, I don't know what this guy is doing. And at first, I'm thinking it was the Survivor Series or whatever it was.
1990 Survivor Series. Hartford.
Snuka. I can't remember what it was, but Jesus Christ. Dude, he scared those people. The kids in the first couple rows, everybody. I mean, the kids were petrified.
Yep.
And I was like, man, these guys are scared to death of this guy. And I was thinking, man, I know this guy, not real good, but I didn't know he was capable of doing this, because that full-blown, you call it character, persona that he came across with was so authentic, so real, so over the top. It was unbelievable. And the changes that he made along the way, then back to the Undertaker, it's one of the greatest gimmicks in the history of the business, if not the.
It's iconic.
It's iconic. Do you think anybody else could have pulled that off?
No, I don't. And it also gets into Mark's temperament as a human being. That's who he is. He is Cool Hand Luke. He is the king in the locker room. He is that everything is measured, reserved. That's how he works. His punches are thrown for a reason, not just to throw punches and bunches. They're thrown for specific reasons and things like that. Moves are not wasted. So that is who he is as an individual. And you see him in the locker room and walking around. He's very measured, very to himself. And then it's enhanced through his persona, which is the iconic Undertaker.
Did you know of that idea before they dropped it on him? Was that floating around the office on a piece of paper like the Ringmaster was?
It actually came through interviewing Percy, because Vince and Pat and specifically we're talking, all right, well, give me some, all right, we're thinking about different characters, and it's almost like an interview. Like, give me some things. Like, what have you done in the past? And Percy said he's did a couple of the things and this. He said, I was a mortician. And all of a sudden, my dad just locked in on that. He said, you were a mortician? I said, that's it. He's the Undertaker, Paul Bearer. And it was born.
Come on.
That was it.
That's how it was made?
Yep.
That's unbelievable. Okay.
All because, again, reality-based,
yeah.
And that's when people can usually feel the characters most, is when it's an extension of them.
Right.
It's an enhancement.
Right.
You're the same. When you felt Stone Cold, it was a jacked-up, enhanced version of who you are.
Right. And the same thing for Ultimate Warrior, because a lot of people, man, that guy was the greatest technician in the world. That guy drew money, and that was an extension of his personality. I just thought the guy was lights out as far as working the crowd. Going to the top of that cage, jumping off, and God dang it, if the Undertaker didn't see you and he moved, so you missed him and landed flat, dab, right on the middle of a table. About a picture-perfect landing as you can make. I know you're a grown man, but I know you had to talk that over with your lovely wife, Marissa, before you made that leap. Did you, or would you not smarten her up?
Well, I made the mistake once of doing something and not smartening her up, and I was in the doghouse forever. So I smartened her up on the potential of things like that happening. So... And
did you tell her you was going to do it? Because, I mean, you hug her, you give her a kiss right before the match, and then you're in.
She knew.
Okay.
So,
because she's happy. I mean, good luck.
Yeah, she's like, please just be careful.
Yeah.
And, she's very concerned because obviously so many things can happen up there. Your shoelace gets caught or something, or you.
Dude, it's a crazy things like that.
You slip, something, dust blows in your eye, you just don't know. But for me, going back to being ADD and hyperactive and everything, one of the abilities of why we can become very good at specific things athletically is all those distractions in our normal life also make us do hyper-focus. So I get like whisper quiet, like in a movie, where everything is just clear. You can hear little snaps. I can hear every single thing, people breathing. Like, that's how quiet I get. Because you have to stay focused, because it's extremely high
It's
risk.
almost like saying a football player sees things in slow motion with clarity. That's the way you dial it in.
Exactly. I see a lot of those things, especially when I do very high-risk moves.
Okay, so you're up there. What are you thinking? I know you tuned everything out, but what are you thinking?
I'm thinking, well, we're going to...
Straight up, dude. Straight up. Shoot.
Yeah, straight up. I'm thinking I'm going to nail this thing. That's it. So I get up there. Here we go. Jump off, and it's not so much... It's not the flight. It's a sudden stop that gets you. That's when you go laying there like a guppy, go trying to get a breath. You're like, oh my God, counting ribs.
How was it?
Stiff. Oh my God, stiff. I cracked 2 ribs on my right side. Yeah, at least 2, because it was sore for about, ribs suck to heal.
Yeah,
that they're like 8-9 weeks.
Yeah.
Every time I'd stretch, I'd do, grab me, and like bend you over. So yeah, it was tight.
What did you think laying there?
After?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little hand squeeze. Are you?
Well, I did a
I'm
systems
cool.
check. Well, first my body was numb. The impact was highly intense. So, you're like, okay, I'm trying to get my air a little bit, and then you're going through your brain art systems check. All right, wiggling my toes. I can feel them. My fingers. I'm like, okay. I'm hearing things. I'm like, all right, things are checking out a little bit, and I'm like, all right, moving over. I look over, and then Taker's looking at me like, you crazy son bitch, and I'm going to come beat you. I'm like, we're good. Here we go. They picked me up. That's when I felt my ribs, is when he picked me up. I was like, oh, I didn't count. The system check did not diagnose that one. I felt that. And then, we were home at that point.
Yeah.
Did all the rest of the work.
What did your kids tell you, and what did your wife tell you? Because when you watched it back, or they'd seen you do it.
Yeah.
What was their thoughts, their impressions?
They were, my little guy was crying. My youngest was 6 at the time, so of course he was crying. My middle son Kenyon, he was upset that I didn't win more than anything. Okay, he was very crushed that I didn't win.
Yeah.
Not so much that I did, of the leap, but they were all very concerned afterwards. And they came to the back and they wanted to check on me, which as they did, I was carted off. So that wasn't a very pleasant visual for them to see me go out on a stretcher into the trainer's room and all that other stuff. But I said, look, guys, I'm okay. So we're going to be all right, and it was okay.
Did Marissa say, hey, man, no more of those? Until the next one comes up.
She's not thrilled, when I get in there.
Got to take you one more thing before we end on a high note. I'll go back to, God dang, what was it? Missing out on the date, October 24th, 2001. I know it's 2001. You worked with Kurt Angle in a street fight match.
King of the Ring?
King of the Ring. King of the Ring, street fight, 2001. Jesus Christ. You kicked his ass for 15 solid minutes, and then he commenced to kicking yours. And in that 15 minutes of kicking, dude, you was throwing in potatoes, too. It was you. Did you take boxing when you was a kid? Because you got a quick punch. You got quick hands.
Yeah, I've always boxed and kickboxed and all that. But I boxed when I was
and you zing those things in. I was watching you tee off on Kurt, and I said, man, better you than me. It was great, though. It was great. And so you're kicking his ass. I mean, it looks like a shoot. And all of a sudden, y'all work back.
That's how good I am, dude.
He sends you through that first thing, and he tries to send you through that first thing of it's supposed to be sugar glass. But I called Kurt today before you came over, and I said, what was up with that? Because I watched that match in its entirety just yesterday. And he goes, they screwed up. It's supposed to be sugar glass, but there was actual regular windshield glass.
Safety glass.
Safety glass.
Yeah.
The exact opposite of what you want to go through. But you went through both of them because, that's what you guys had in mind.
Yeah.
Took some effort to get you at that first one. Bam, you hit that thing on your back. You crashed down on your dome.
Straight
in the back. I mean, what was up? What are you thinking? Because you know the task at hand. You want to pull the gag off.
Yep.
So you want to get through both glasses, but you're getting the tar beat out of you. You're bloody as hell once you land through that backside on that second one. He's already gashed on the first one. Did you get lit up? Were you all there?
I wasn't concussed or anything.
Okay, so you were straight up.
So I was straight up. I mean, I was hurting. But
you did a great job of selling it.
Thanks. Well, the adrenaline. I mean, it hurts. Newsflash, it hurts.
Yeah.
Laying on your head, it hurts on the concrete. Just prior to that, if you watch that match, Kurt called a suplex, and I called it off in the middle aisle. It's just cement. He says, no, suplex. I said, no, Kurt. He goes, oh, God damn it. And he did something to me, and I didn't have much of a choice. I'm like, all right, suplex. So as we did it, he hit, and he went, oh, my God, and cracked his tailbone. Because remember,
That's right.
That's right after that, we're like, what are we going to do? And that's when you started getting with Kurt, and we put the hat on him with the ukulele, and we made, it was great entertainment at that point, but that's because he couldn't physically get in the ring. That was a big reason why on that belly-to-belly getting me through, I should have went through because he still sailed me, but by the third time, I said, you Olympic wuss, something along those lines. I can't even believe you came and threw me through it. And he went, finally, we went through. Then I said it on the way back, because he did it twice on the way back. Finally, he says, that's it. He just picked me up and just threw me through instead of suplexing me through.
You end up hitting that thing with your dome, cut your face.
Every morning, I got big lines way up here, reminders of Kurt.
I forgot that he had told me that that's when he injured his tailbone, and I was watching another match when we were at Meadowlands Arena, and that was when Booker T had made his debut. I'm in a match, or I'm interfering in a match, and he dumps me on the announce table. He dumps me perfectly, but I'm so sweaty I hit the top of that thing and skid off, and that's when I broke the 3 transverse processes when I hit the chair on the floor behind the table. So that was on me, but I had 3 broke bones in my back, and that's why we were able to do all those comedic things, because he had an injured tailbone, and I finally was able to put the 2 and 2 together of why and how we actually started doing that, because I wasn't getting any heat. People didn't want me to be a heel. I couldn't do anything, so I wanted to be entertaining if I couldn't get any heat to do any physicality.
Right.
So I was getting shot up with 60 milligrams of Toradol every time we go somewhere just to try to do some ha-ha. But that's how that all happened. So what did your dad say when you come back, y'all come back, a bloody heap of a mess, pull off a gangbuster of a match, and then you end up in the back? What did the old man tell you?
Well, I didn't know that Vince almost came out about 3 times during that match. He was going to call it off.
Really?
Had no idea. Kyoto was a ref. Kyoto's usually always my ref, because we go back in the days, like I said.
I love Kyoto.
And it takes 3, not just 2. It takes 3. So, in the IFB, I guess Vince is saying something. Kyoto's talking to me, but I think he's just kind of calling, just saying gibberish, because, again, I got whacked in the head a couple times. And he's like, oh, no, saying something. Anyway, so Vince thinks that I'm shooing him off, that I'm disobeying an order, that I'm getting through Kyoto. But I never really got the order, because I'm never disobey him. So Gorilla was absolutely quiet. Vince was going ballistic. I mean, throwing stuff. Poor Jerry Briscoe was the one doing the times at that point. I mean, it came back. It was in shambles. So Kurt and I come back through. We just finished. And it was one of the first ever standing ovations, because that wasn't given back in the day, And I'm not saying that to brag. I was just how appreciative I was, and how appreciative the fans were that we put ourselves through that for them. And it was like, oh my God, it was awesome. Get through Gorilla. It's like a morgue. I was like, oh, I don't know what's going on here. So Kurt and I keep going. Literally it was silent. My dad was nowhere to be seen. He was so fuming. As we walk in the back, there's a whole line of guys, all the boys were applauding. And as you know, when you pop the monitor like that and all the boys are giving you a standing O in the back, that's the ultimate high you can ever get. Followed by quickly the ultimate low as I turn around the corner on my way to the trainer's room before we go to the hospital, and then here comes Marissa, just eyes bawling. She has no idea, because I didn't tell her anything. This is the one I got a huge heat for. So I said, look, it's going to be rough. And she had no idea it was going to be like that. So she had no idea if I was okay. She had no insight to the business. She had no communication. So she went back and just saw me gushing and everything. And I'm laughing. Kurt and I are high-fiving each other.
No, you crushed it.
And she's like, what? I was like, oh, my God, I'm so sorry, And then I had Kurt, obviously being from Pittsburgh, I had this local beer, Iron City Light, and we popped one. Kurt, he's hardly doesn't drink. And he's like, oh, we're having one. We're definitely doing that. We're high-fiving each other as we're both getting shoved in the ambulance to go to the hospital.
What did Vince tell you?
He was so mad because, again, he thought I disobeyed an order. He says, if I ever say something, I said, look, I never disrespect you that way. And if you said it, I would have stopped. but I didn't get the message. And he was like, so he's fuming because
you're towing the line there.
I'm
didn't get the message straight up.
Straight up, I'm being completely honest. So I'm not. I don't ever believe me.
Okay.
That intensity is there when I took childhood and everything else that went with it, but I never lied to him ever in my entire life. So he was fuming, and he said that was one of. He said something very nice to me. Put the match over, and I'll stay private. And he says, but don't you ever blank and do that ever again. He was so hot. We were supposed to ride back together. And he didn't ride with me. He got his own car. I was like, wow. I was like, woof, I had heat. I mean, because he was so nervous. He was so, and so it was two things. Being a father and seeing, your son go through a train wreck,
Yeah.
And waving him off, which really made him hot in front of everybody. Because he was giving the order in front of everybody.
Right.
Right. So he thought I was disobeying on top of all that.
Right.
So
and everybody that was.
And everyone around knows that I'm disobeying now.
Yeah.
So it was like, woof. That's why Gorilla was.
He's not going to lose the team.
Oh, my God.
This head coach doesn't lose the team.
Woof.
What do you got down the road? I mean, are you going to keep being the commish or what?
Yeah, I'm very much enjoying that. And as long as I can continually make a difference and help guys now, especially greener guys, grow and help them and learn psychology and make the product better, I'm in. Makes me feel great. I love to be able to do that, love to be able to teach, and love the camaraderie of it all. Love the business.
Oh, yeah, I do too. On Twitter, you are at Shane McMahon.
Correct.
So anyway, it was good talking to you. I'm glad you came and saw the crib today. This will be the studio one of these days, and we're about to go eat a steak, and I will buy the first round.
Looking forward to that whiskey. It's been a pleasure. It's been way too long, and it's been awesome being in the ring with you, sitting across from you, and continuing our journey together.
Yeah, I want to come down to Orlando one of these days when you go down and talk to those youngins down there at the NXT Performance Center. I've been wanting to come down there and drop a little 411 on them, as just like some of the other guys have gone down there.
Good. You should do that.
Be something to do.
Be happy to do it with you. I know some people. We can get down there.
I'll catch you down the road. All right, everybody, give me the go home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast and ride off in the sunset. But before I do, in honor of my guest, Shane McMahon, I want to give you guys something to watch. Check out on the WWE Network, WrestleMania 32, Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker on the WWE Network. Or one other selection, WrestleMania 33 versus AJ Styles. Two lights-out matches, both telling different stories. Shane McMahon, thank you for coming down to 316 Gimmick Street and 317 Gimmick Street. It was a pleasure hanging out with you, seeing you live and in living color, and eating a steak with you. God dang, it was a damn good visit. Thanks for coming down to the mean streets of Los Angeles, and anytime you're in my territory, I got you back. Hey, all the shirts you've been seeing me wear on the last season of Broken Skull Challenge, they're at ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin. And if you're looking for the best IPA on the planet, look no further than Steve Austin's Broken Skull IPA from El Segundo Brewing Company. Stop by the brewery if you're in L.A. If you're in Cali, pick it up at Whole Foods and Total Wines. If you want to order it from InsideTheCellar.com, if you live in a state that they ship to, check them out at InsideTheCellar.com. You can find everything that is Steve Austin at BrokenSkullRanch.com, including the Cold Steel Broken Skull knife and the new Working Man's knife. Two badass knives with different price points. And thank you for supporting all the fine sponsors of the Steve Austin Show. That's how I'm able to do this podcast for you twice a week for free. And you can find all my sponsors at PodcastOne.com. Just click on the Killer Deals button at the top of the page and then click on the Steve Austin Show banner. Hey, the 60-second AP News headlines are coming up next. Until next time, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.
My name is Raven, professional wrestling superstar, raconteur extraordinaire, and other adjectives. Or is it adverbs? Anyway, join me in a motley assortment of friends, enemies, ne'er-do-wells, and know-nothings as we banter about all kinds of nonsense every Monday here at the Jericho Network on Podcast One. Download and listen to the show on PodcastOne.com, the Podcast One app, and Apple Podcasts. Quote to Raven, nevermore.